Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the stars streak past the viewing window of the UES Liberty. The human exploration ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 weeks now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that might support life. Jake was tired, but happy with their progress. His crew of 45 had worked hard to chart 12 new systems, and they were almost ready to head home to Earth. Lieutenant Amy Carter called out from her navigation station, "Captain, we're approaching the jump point for our return route. All systems are ready for faster-than-light travel." Jake nodded and looked around the bridge. Dr. Ben Rodriguez was studying alien rock samples at his science station. The ship's engineer, Kate Thompson, was checking power levels. Everything seemed normal for their journey home. "Begin the jump sequence, Amy," Jake ordered. Amy's fingers moved across her control panel. The ship's engines began to hum louder as they prepared to tear a hole in space-time. This was always the most dangerous part of space travel. One small mistake could send them millions of miles off course, or worse. "Jump in 10 seconds, Amy announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jumping now." The stars outside the window suddenly turned into bright lines of light. Jake felt the familiar pulling sensation in his stomach as the ship entered faster-than-light travel. They would be in this strange space between normal space for about 6 hours before reaching their destination, but something was wrong. Jake noticed that Amy was frowning at her instruments. She pressed several buttons and shook her head. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from the navigation computer," Amy said. "The jump coordinates seem to be changing on their own." Jake stood up and walked over to her station. The numbers on her screen were indeed moving around randomly. This had never happened before. "Can you stop the jump?" Jake asked. "No, sir. Once we're in faster-than-light travel, we have to complete the journey. But I don't know where we're going." To end up, Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his work. "Captain, this could be very dangerous. If we come out of the jump in the wrong place, we might appear inside a planet or a star." Jake felt worry growing in his chest. His crew was depending on him to keep them safe, but there was nothing he could do now except wait and see where they would end up. "All crew to emergency stations," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for possible emergency exit from faster-than-light travel." The crew quickly moved to their positions. Kate Thompson ran extra checks on the ship's shields and weapons systems. Dr. Rodriguez secured all his equipment and samples. Everyone held their breath as they waited. 6 hours later, Amy called out, "Captain, we're about to exit faster-than-light travel. I still don't know our location." The lines of light outside the window suddenly became normal stars again. But these were not the stars they expected to see. Instead of the familiar sight of Earth's solar system, they found themselves surrounded by a beautiful purple and blue nebula. "Amy, where are we?" Jake asked. Amy worked frantically at her controls. Her face went pale as she read the results. "Captain, according to our computers, we're in the Helix Nebula. But that's impossible. This area is marked as restricted space in all our star charts." Before Jake could respond, red warning lights began flashing all over the bridge. The ship's computer started speaking in its calm voice. "Warning. Multiple alien vessels detected. Warning. Weapon systems are targeting this ship." Jake looked at the main screen and saw 5 large alien ships surrounding the Liberty. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen before. They were long and sleek, with silver metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered their hulls. "Open communication channels," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the face of an alien creature. Jake had never seen anything like it. The being had blue-gray skin and large golden eyes. Its head was longer than a human head, and it had no visible nose, just small holes where a nose should be. The alien spoke in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. Somehow, the ship's computer was able to translate the words. Into English. Human vessel, you have entered sacred space without permission. This is Admiral Kethfer of the Zenthari Empire. State your purpose for violating our most holy territory. Jake stood up straight and tried to look confident, even though his hands were shaking. Admiral Kethfer. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration ship Liberty. We did not mean to enter your space. Our navigation system failed during our journey home. The aliens' golden eyes narrowed. Humans are known to us as a primitive species. Your technology should not be able to penetrate our detection systems. How did you reach this place undetected? Jake realized that the aliens were just as surprised to see humans here as he was to be here. I don't know how we got here undetected. Our navigation computer malfunctioned during faster-than-light travel. Admiral Kethfer turned to speak with other aliens who were not visible on the screen. Jake could hear them talking in their strange language. When the Admiral turned back, his expression was even more serious. Captain Morrison, this nebula contains the burial grounds of our ancestors. No alien species has ever set foot in this space. Your presence here is an act of war according to our laws. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Admiral, we mean no harm to your people or your sacred places. We just want to go home. That may not be possible, Admiral Kethfer replied. My government must decide what to do with you. Prepare to be boarded. The screen went dark. Jake looked around at his crew. Amy was still trying to fix the navigation system. Dr. Rodriguez was studying readings about the alien ships. Kate was making sure their shields were at full power. Captain, what do we do? Amy asked. Jake sat back down in his chair and thought carefully. His ship and crew were trapped in alien territory, surrounded by warships, and accused of committing an act of war. But he had to stay calm and find a way to get everyone home safely. We cooperate with them and hope we can explain what happened, Jake said, and we try to learn as much as we can about these Zenthari people. Dr. Rodriguez, start recording everything. This might be the most important first contact in human history. As Jake spoke, he could see alien shuttles leaving the Zenthari ships and heading toward the Liberty. The alien shuttle docked with the Liberty with a soft thud that Jake felt through the ship's hull. He stood in the main airlock with Dr. Ben Rodriguez and Sergeant Mike Collins, the head of security. Mike had his hand near his weapon, but Jake had ordered him not to draw it unless absolutely necessary. Remember, we're guests in their space, whether we meant to be here or not, Jake told his men. We need to show respect. The airlock door opened with a hiss, and 3 Zenthari aliens stepped aboard the Liberty. The first one was taller than the others and wore what looked like a military uniform made of the same glowing silver material as their ships. The alien's golden eyes studied Jake carefully. I am Commander Lisa Hayes, the alien said in perfect English. I serve as liaison between my people and other species. Admiral Kethfer has sent me to inspect your vessel. Jake was surprised that the alien had chosen a human name. Commander Hayes, I'm Captain Morrison. Thank you for speaking our language. I studied human languages and culture during my training, Lisa explained. Your species interests us because you explore space with such primitive technology, yet you survive in dangerous situations. The other 2, Zenthari, spread out to examine the ship's corridors. They carried strange devices that beeped and flashed as they scanned everything around them. Dr. Rodriguez watched them with fascination. Commander, may I ask what those devices do? Ben asked. Lisa looked at the doctor with what might have been amusement. They scanned for weapons, hidden technology, and biological threats. We must ensure your ship does not contain anything dangerous to our people. As they walked through the Liberty, Jake noticed that the Zenthari seemed puzzled by what they found. They spent a long time examining the ship's computer systems and engines. One of them called Lisa over and spoke to her in their own language. Captain Morrison, your technology is very different from what we expected, Lisa said. Our records indicate that human ships should not be able to travel this far from your home system. Jake exchanged glances with Dr. Rodriguez. Commander, how much do your people know about humans? We know that your species began space travel only 200 years ago. We know you use nuclear fusion for power and basic computer systems for navigation. We know you have not developed faster than light communication or advanced weapons, Lisa replied. That's all correct, Jake said. We're still learning how to explore space safely. The Xanthari with the scanning device called Lisa over again. This time, she looked very surprised by what he told her. She turned back to Jake with her golden eyes wide. Captain, my scanner operator says your navigation computer has been tampered with. Someone deliberately changed your jump coordinates. Jake felt his stomach drop. Are you saying someone sabotaged our ship? That appears to be correct. The changes were made recently, probably while your ship was in space. Sergeant Mike stepped forward. Captain, that means someone on our crew is working against us. Before Jake could respond, Kate Thompson's voice came over the communication system. Captain Morrison, please report to engineering immediately. I found something you need to see. Jake looked at Commander Lisa. May we check this together? It might help explain how we ended up in your space. Lisa nodded, and the group made their way to the engineering section of the ship. Kate was waiting for them with a worried expression on her face. She had several computer panels open, showing the ship's navigation programming. Captain, I found evidence of sabotage in our navigation system, Kate said. Someone installed a hidden program that would activate during our jump home. The program was designed to change our destination to these exact coordinates. Dr. Rodriguez studied the computer code on Kate's screen. This is very sophisticated work. Whoever did this knew our systems perfectly and wanted us to end up in Xanthari space. Commander Lisa examined the programming with interest. This code contains elements that are not human in origin. Some of these commands use mathematical concepts that your species has not yet discovered. Jake felt anger growing inside him. Someone had deliberately put his crew in danger by sending them into restricted alien territory. But who would do such a thing, and why? Commander, do you recognize this alien programming? Jake asked. Lisa studied the code more carefully. She spoke to her scanner operators in Xanthari language, and they ran their devices over Kate's computer systems. After several minutes, Lisa turned back with a grim expression. Captain Morrison, this programming was created by the Vorthan Syndicate. They are a criminal organization that operates throughout this region of space. Why would criminals want to send us to your territory? Jake asked. The Vorthans profit from conflicts between different species. They sell weapons and information to all sides during wars. By sending a human ship into our sacred space, they hoped to create tension between our peoples. Sergeant Mike clenched his fists. So we're being used as pawns in someone else's game? It appears so, Lisa agreed. But this creates a problem for my government. Even though you were tricked into coming here, you have still violated our most sacred laws. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all good people who had signed up to explore space and help humanity learn about the universe. None of them deserved to be caught up in an alien criminal plot. Commander Hayes, what will happen to us now? Jake asked. Admiral Kethfer is consulting with our government. Some of our leaders believe you should be punished regardless of how you arrived here. Others think you are victims of the Vorthan Syndicate. Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. Commander, is there anything we can do to prove our good intentions? Lisa thought for a moment. You could allow us to examine your ship's records and interview your crew. If we can prove that the Vorthans were responsible for sending you here, it might help your case. Jake nodded immediately. You have my full cooperation. We have nothing to hide. Over the next several hours, the Xanthari conducted a thorough investigation of the Liberty and its crew. They interviewed each crew member and examined every computer system on the ship. Jake was impressed by how professional and fair they were during the process. Commander Lisa worked closely with Kate Thompson to trace the sabotage back to its source. They discovered that the alien programming had been installed when the Liberty docked at a space station for supplies 3 weeks earlier. The space station has a reputation for criminal activity, Lisa explained. The Vorthons probably bribed someone to install their program while your ship was being refueled. As the investigation continued, Jake found himself talking with Lisa about the differences between human and Xanthari technology. She was fascinated by how humans had learned to adapt and improvise when their equipment failed. Your species solves problems in ways we would never consider, Lisa said. We build our technology to be perfect and permanent. You build yours to be flexible and repairable. We have to, Jake replied. Human technology isn't as advanced as yours, so we've learned to make the best of what we have. That may be why you survived the sabotage, Lisa observed. A Xanthari ship would have been destroyed by such interference, but your crew found ways to adapt. As the day ended, Admiral Kethfer contacted the Liberty again. His expression was less hostile than before, but still very serious. Captain Morrison, our investigation confirms that your ship was sabotaged by the Vorthon Syndicate. However, you have still entered sacred space, and our laws demand consequences. Jake stood straight and prepared to hear his fate. Admiral, my crew and I are ready to accept responsibility for our actions. The High Council will meet tomorrow to decide your punishment, Admiral Kethfer announced. Until then, you will remain under guard in this location. When the communication ended, Jake looked around at his crew. They had learned a lot about their situation, but they were still prisoners in alien space with an uncertain future. 2 days passed before Admiral Kethfer contacted the Liberty again. During that time, Jake and his crew had remained under guard by the Xanthari ships, but they were allowed to move freely around their own vessel. Commander Lisa Hayes had stayed aboard to continue studying human technology and culture. When the Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, he looked troubled. Captain Morrison, our High Council, has reached a decision about your situation. However, new events have made this matter more complicated. Jake felt his stomach tighten. What kind of events, Admiral? 3 more ships have been sabotaged by the Vorthon Syndicate in the past week. 2 Xanthari vessels and 1 from the Keldan Republic. All were sent into restricted or dangerous areas of space. The Council believes this is part of a larger criminal operation. Dr. Ben Rodriguez stepped forward. Admiral, are you saying the Vorthons are trying to start conflicts between multiple species? That is exactly what we believe, Doctor. The Vorthons profit from selling weapons and information during wars. By creating incidents between peaceful species, they hope to generate more conflicts. Commander Lisa spoke up from her position near the science station. Admiral, I recommend we work with the humans to investigate this matter further. Their different approach to problem-solving might help us understand Vorthon methods. Admiral Kethver considered this suggestion. Very well, Captain Morrison. We are sending Detective Ray Sullivan from our Criminal Investigation Division to work with your crew. We also request that you allow scientist Sarketh to study your ship's systems. Jake was surprised by this development. You want to work together with us? The Vorthon Syndicate is a threat to all peaceful species, the Admiral replied. If we can stop their operations, it will benefit everyone. An hour later, 2 more Xanthari came aboard the Liberty. Detective Ray Sullivan was smaller than the other Xanthari, with darker blue skin and silver markings around his golden eyes. Scientist Zarketh was taller and thinner, with pale gray skin and equipment hanging from his uniform. Detective Sullivan introduced himself to Jake and his senior officers. Captain Morrison, I have been investigating Vorthon criminal activities for 10 years. They are very dangerous and very clever. We must work carefully to catch them. What exactly do the Vorthons want? Jake asked. Profit, Sullivan replied. Simply, they sell weapons to both sides during conflicts. They also sell information about military movements and weak points in planetary defenses. War is very profitable for them. Scientist Zarketh was already studying the sabotaged navigation computer with Kate Thompson. Engineer Thompson, this programming is more sophisticated than previous Vorthon work. They are improving their methods. Kate showed him the hidden code that had changed their jump coordinates. Can you tell how they installed this without us knowing? Yes, I believe so. The Vorthons use a device that can modify computer systems through wireless signals. They probably activated it while your ship was docked at the space station. Dr. Rodriguez joined their conversation. If they can do that, how do we protect ourselves from future attacks? That is what we must learn, Zarketh said. The Vorthons are always developing new ways to manipulate other species' technology. Detective Sullivan gathered Jake's crew in the main conference room to discuss the investigation. We need to understand exactly how the Vorthons chose your ship for this operation. They do not act randomly. Sergeant Mike Collins spoke up. Detective, could they have been watching us before we docked at the space station? Very possible. The Vorthons have agents throughout this region. Someone may have identified your ship as a good target for their plan. Amy Carter, who had been quiet during most of the discussions, suddenly looked worried. Captain, I just remembered something. When we were at the space station, a maintenance worker seemed very interested in our navigation system. He asked a lot of questions about how it worked. Detective Sullivan leaned forward. Describe this person. He was human, which seemed strange, because there aren't many humans working that far from Earth. He said his name was Tony Davis, and that he had been working at the station for 2 years. Did he touch your navigation computer? Sullivan asked Amy. Thought carefully. Yes, he said he needed to check the connections while we were refueling. I didn't think anything was wrong because he seemed to know what he was doing. Kate Thompson slammed her hand on the table. That's when the sabotage program was installed. This Tony Davis must be working for the Vorthons. Detective Sullivan made notes in a small device. We will investigate this. Tony Davis, the Vorthons often recruit members of other species to help with their operations. Scientist Zarketh had been studying the Liberty's computer systems while the others talked. He called everyone over to look at his findings. I have discovered something interesting. The sabotage program was designed to activate only if your ship was carrying certain types of scientific equipment. Dr. Rodriguez examined Zarketh's data. What kind of equipment? Sensors for detecting rare metals and energy sources. The Vorthons wanted to ensure that any ship they sent to Xanthari space would be conducting scientific research. Jake realized what this meant. They wanted it to look like we were spying on your people, not just lost. Exactly, Detective Sullivan confirmed. If you had been caught with active scientific sensors in our sacred space, it would have been considered an act of espionage. The incident would have created much more serious tensions between our species. Commander Lisa Hayes, who had been listening to the investigation, spoke up. Detective, this suggests the Vorthons have detailed knowledge of both human and Xanthari laws and customs. Yes, they study all species carefully before conducting operations against them. This makes them very dangerous enemies. Over the next few hours, the joint investigation team discovered more evidence of Vorthon planning. The criminals had spent months preparing for their operation, studying human ship schedules and Xanthari patrol routes. They knew exactly when and where to strike, Sullivan explained. The Vorthons are not simple criminals. They planned their operations like military campaigns. Scientist Zarketh made another important discovery while examining the Liberty's communication system. Captain Morrison, your ship has been broadcasting a hidden signal since you arrived in Xanthari space. Jake felt alarm. What kind of signal? It appears to be sending information about our ship positions and defensive capabilities back to the Vorthons. They have been using your vessel as a spy device. Kate Thompson immediately began working to shut down the hidden transmission. I can stop it, but this means the Vorthons know everything about our current situation. Detective Sullivan looked grim. If the Vorthons know we are investigating them, they may take action to eliminate the evidence. As if responding to his words, the Liberty's alarm system suddenly activated. Amy Carter called out from the navigation station, "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position at high speed." Admiral Kethfer's voice came over the communication system. "All vessels, prepare for possible attack. Unknown ships are entering the restricted zone." Jake looked at the main screen and saw 6 dark ships approaching the Xanthari fleet. These vessels looked different from both human and Xanthari designs. They were angular and aggressive, with weapon systems clearly visible on their hulls. "Attack ships," Detective Sullivan said quietly. "They have come to silence us." Commander Lisa Hayes activated her communication device and spoke rapidly in Xanthari language to Admiral Kethfer. She turned back to Jake with a serious expression. "Captain Morrison, the Admiral is ordering all non-military personnel to secure themselves for combat. But he is also asking if you will fight alongside us against the Vorthons." Jake looked around at his crew. The Liberty was not a warship, but they had defensive weapons and shields. More importantly, they had been dragged into this situation against their will. "Commander Hayes, tell the Admiral that we stand with the Xanthari against the criminals who put us all in danger." As Jake spoke, the Vorthan ships opened fire on both the human and Xanthari vessels. The battle for survival was about to begin. The first Vorthan weapons blast hit the Liberty's shields and shook the entire ship. Jake grabbed onto his command chair as the lights flickered and alarms sounded throughout the vessel. On the main screen, he could see the Xanthari ships returning, fire with bright blue energy beams. "Amy, get us behind the Xanthari flagship," Jake ordered. "Kate, bring our weapons online." "Captain, our weapons are designed for defending against pirates, not for real space battles," Kate called out from her engineering station. "Then we'll have to be creative," Jake replied. "Dr. Rodriguez, what can you tell us about those Vorthan ships?" Ben studied his scanner readings. "They're heavily armed, but not very well shielded. Their design seems focused on quick attacks rather than prolonged fighting." Commander Lisa Hayes activated her communication device and spoke with Admiral Kethfer. She turned to Jake with urgent news. "The Admiral says there are more Vorthan ships coming. This is not just an attack, it's a full assault." Detective Sullivan and Scientist Sarkith had been studying the enemy ships from the science station. "Captain Morrison, the Vorthans are using weapons technology stolen from multiple species. Some of those weapons are designed specifically to penetrate Xanthari shields." Jake realized that the criminals had planned this attack carefully, just like they had planned the sabotage of his ship. They knew we would investigate together, and they came prepared to fight both humans and Xanthari. Another blast rocked the Liberty as a Vorthan ship targeted them directly. This time, the ship's artificial gravity failed for several seconds, causing everyone to float briefly before it restored itself. "Shields down to 60%, Kate reported. "Captain, we can't take many more hits like that." Jake watched the battle unfolding around them. The Xanthari ships were powerful and well-armed, but they were fighting in a defensive formation to protect the sacred nebula behind them. The Vorthans were using hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly and then retreating, before the Xanthari could respond effectively. "Amy, can you get us into position to help that Xanthari cruiser?" Jake asked, pointing to a ship that was surrounded by 3 Vorthan attackers. "Yes, sir, but we'll be exposed to enemy fire." "Do it." As the Liberty moved toward the besieged Xanthari cruiser, Jake opened a communication channel to Admiral Kethfer. "Admiral, we're going to try something that might help, but we need your ships to be ready to support us." "Captain Morrison, your vessel is not designed for this kind of combat," the Admiral replied. "No, but sometimes that can be an advantage." Jake turned to his crew. "Kate, shut down all non-essential systems and route that power to our engines. Amy, I want you to fly us directly at that lead Vorthan ship." "Captain, that's suicide, Sergeant," Mike protested. "Not if we do it right." "The Vorthans have studied Xanthari tactics, but they don't know how humans fight. We're going to show them something they haven't seen before. Amy piloted the Liberty in a direct charge toward the largest Vorthen ship. The enemy vessel immediately turned to face them, preparing to destroy what appeared to be a foolishly brave human ship. Now, Amy, emergency stop and roll left, Jake commanded. The Liberty suddenly reversed its engines and spun sideways, avoiding the Vorthen weapons fire by mere meters. The sudden maneuver put the human ship directly beside the enemy vessel's weakest point. Kate, fire everything we have at their engine section. The Liberty's weapons were not powerful, but they were precise. Kate concentrated all their firepower on a small section of the Vorthen ship's hull, creating a chain reaction that disabled the enemy vessel's propulsion system. Direct hit, Ben called out. That ship is dead in space. The Zenthari ships immediately took advantage of the situation, destroying the disabled Vorthen vessel and driving off its escorts. Admiral Kethver's voice came over the communication system with what sounded like approval. Impressive tactics, Captain Morrison. Our war strategists did not predict such a maneuver, but the battle was far from over. More Vorthen ships were arriving, and they were adapting to the combined humans and Thuri defense. Jake could see that the criminals had brought enough firepower to overwhelm the Zenthari fleet. Commander, Lisa Hayes received another message from the Admiral. Captain, Admiral Kethver is asking if you have any other unconventional ideas. The Vorthens are regrouping for a major assault. Jake studied the tactical display, showing all the ships in the area. The Zenthari were excellent fighters, but they followed predictable patterns. The Vorthens had learned to counter those patterns. However, humans had a reputation for unpredictability. Amy, I need you to plot a course that takes us through that asteroid field at the edge of the nebula. Amy looked at him with shock. Captain, flying through an asteroid field during a battle is incredibly dangerous. Exactly. The Vorthens won't expect us to do something that crazy. Jake opened a channel to all the Zenthari ships. Admiral Kethver, I have a plan, but it requires your ships to trust us completely. Explain your plan, Captain. We're going to lead the Vorthens into the asteroid field and trap them there, but your ships will need to follow our exact flight path. There was a long pause before the Admiral replied, Captain Morrison, Zenthari ships are not designed for the kind of maneuvering you are suggesting, but they are designed to be very precise, right? If we show you the way, can your pilots follow our exact course? Yes, we can do that. Jake turned to his crew. This is going to be the most dangerous flying any of us have ever done. Amy, I need you to thread us through those asteroids like we're running an obstacle course. I'll do my best, Captain. The Liberty broke away from the Zenthari formation and headed toward the asteroid field at full speed. As Jake had predicted, the Vorthen ships immediately pursued them, thinking the humans were trying to escape. Here they come, Ben reported. All 6 remaining Vorthen ships are following us. Amy piloted the Liberty into the asteroid field with skill that impressed even herself. The ship twisted and rolled between massive space rocks, using its smaller size and maneuverability to navigate the dangerous terrain. Behind them, the Zenthari ships followed the exact path the Liberty had taken, their precise navigation systems, allowing them to duplicate every maneuver perfectly. The Vorthen ships, designed for open space combat, struggled to keep up in the confined asteroid field. Now, Amy, sharp turn around that big asteroid and double back, Jake ordered. The Liberty swung around a house-sized space rock and suddenly found itself facing the approaching Vorthen ships head-on, but the enemy vessels were trapped between asteroids and could not maneuver effectively. The Zenthari ships emerged from behind other asteroids, surrounding the confused Vorthens in a perfect ambush. The battle ended quickly as the criminal ships found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered. When the last Vorthen ship was destroyed, Admiral Kethver opened a communication channel to the Liberty. For the first time since they had met, The Xanthari commander was smiling. Captain Morrison, that was the most unconventional battle tactic I have ever witnessed. Your species fights unlike any other we have encountered. Jake smiled back. Admiral, sometimes the best plan is the one your enemy doesn't expect. Commander Lisa Hayes spoke up from her station. Captain, Admiral Kethver wishes to formally thank you and your crew for fighting alongside us. You have proven that humans are brave and honorable allies. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his scanner readings. Captain, I'm detecting a Xanthari fleet approaching our position. They're flying ceremonial flags. Those ships carry our government leaders, Lisa explained. They are coming to witness what has happened here today. Jake realized that this battle had changed everything. Humans and Xanthari had fought together as equals, each contributing their unique strengths to achieve victory. The relationship between their species would never be the same. 3 days after the battle, the most important leaders from both human and Xanthari governments had gathered in the Helix Nebula. President Helen Grant had traveled from Earth aboard the human flagship UES Constitution, while Supreme Chancellor Vex Thera had come from the Xanthari homeworld with a fleet of ceremonial vessels. Jake stood in the Liberty's main conference room, wearing his best dress uniform. Beside him were Dr. Ben Rodriguez, Amy Carter, Kate Thompson, and the rest of his senior crew. They had been invited to attend the historic meeting between the two species leaders. Commander Lisa Hayes had spent the past 3 days helping to arrange the diplomatic protocols. She had become something of a celebrity among both humans and Xanthari for her role in facilitating cooperation during the crisis. Captain Morrison, Lisa said as she entered the conference room, President Grant and Supreme Chancellor Vex Thera are ready to begin the formal negotiations. You and your crew have been specifically requested to participate. Jake felt nervous about meeting the most powerful leaders of two civilizations, but he knew his crew deserved recognition for what they had accomplished. We're honored to be included, Commander. The meeting took place aboard the Xanthari flagship, a massive vessel that was more like a floating city than a spaceship. Jake and his crew were transported there in a ceremonial shuttle, accompanied by President Grant and her diplomatic team. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thera was the most impressive Xanthari Jake had ever seen. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Her golden eyes held wisdom that came from centuries of experience leading her people. Captain Morrison, the Chancellor said in perfect English, your actions during the recent crisis have demonstrated that humans possess qualities we did not expect from a young species. President Grant, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and kind eyes, smiled warmly at Jake. Captain, you and your crew have made all of humanity proud. Your courage and quick thinking turned a potential disaster into an opportunity for friendship. The formal negotiations began with both leaders acknowledging the unique circumstances that had brought their species together. Ambassador Carol Wright, Earth's most experienced diplomat, worked closely with Judge Advocate Kurthane, the Xanthari legal expert, to establish new protocols for future interactions. The incident that brought us together was caused by criminals who sought to profit from conflict between our peoples, President Grant stated. However, the cooperation that emerged from this crisis shows that our species can work together for mutual benefit. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thera nodded in agreement. The Xanthari Empire has always been cautious about contact with younger species. We believed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. Captain Morrison and his crew have proven us wrong. Dr. Rodriguez was invited to present his scientific observations about the differences between human and Xanthari approaches to problem solving. Your Excellencies, our species think differently, but that difference is a strength rather than a weakness. Xanthari precision, combined with human adaptability, creates possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. Judge Advocate Kurthane spoke about the legal implications of the recent events. The violation of our sacred space was caused by criminal action, not human aggression. Under Zentari law, Captain Morrison and his crew are recognized as victims, rather than violators. Ambassador Wright proposed a formal alliance between the two species. We suggest establishing joint patrol groups to combat criminal organizations like the Vorthan Syndicate. Our different fighting styles proved very effective. When combined, the negotiations continued for hours, with both sides working to create agreements that would benefit everyone. Jake was amazed by how much trust had developed between humans and Zenthari in such a short time. Admiral Kethfer, who had been promoted to Supreme Military Advisor after the successful battle, presented a proposal for military cooperation. Human tactical creativity combined with Zenthari technological superiority could make our region of space much safer for all peaceful species. As the day progressed, several important agreements were reached. The Zenthari would share certain technologies with humans to help them explore space more safely. In return, humans would provide tactical training to Zenthari military forces. Most importantly, the Zenthari officially recognized humans as a Tier 2 civilization with full diplomatic privileges. This meant that human ships would be allowed to travel through previously restricted areas of space as long as they followed proper protocols. This is the beginning of a new era for both our species, Supreme Chancellor Vextera declared. The Zenthari Empire welcomes humanity as friends and allies. President Grant signed the formal treaty documents alongside the Chancellor. These agreements will ensure that the friendship forged in crisis will continue to grow in peace. During the ceremony that followed, Jake and his crew received honors from both governments. Admiral Kethper presented them with the Star of Valor, the highest Zenthari military decoration. President Grant awarded them the Presidential Unit Citation for their service to humanity. Captain Morrison, Admiral Kethfer said during the presentation, "You and your crew have shown us that courage and honor are not determined by the sophistication of one's technology, but by the strength of one's character." Commander Lisa Hayes had been selected to serve as the first Zenthari ambassador to Earth. She would travel aboard the Liberty for their journey home, continuing her studies of human culture and helping to establish the new embassy. "I am excited to learn more about your people," Lisa told Jake. "The Zenthari have much to learn from human creativity and determination." Detective Sullivan and scientist Zarkith had been assigned to lead the Joint Task Force investigating Vorthan's syndicate activities throughout the region. Their successful cooperation during the recent crisis had proven that human and Zenthari investigators could work effectively together. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Jake found himself talking privately with President Grant and Supreme Chancellor Vex. The two leaders wanted to thank him personally for his role in preventing what could have been a disastrous first contact between their species. "Captain, when your ship first appeared in our space, many of our people wanted to treat you as invaders," the Chancellor admitted. "Your conduct during the crisis changed their minds completely." President Grant nodded in agreement. "Jake, you and your crew faced an impossible situation with grace and courage. You've opened a door to the stars that will benefit generations of humans to come." Dr. Rodriguez approached with exciting news from his final discussions with Zenthari scientists. "Captain, they've agreed to share star charts for this entire region of space. We'll be able to explore dozens of new systems safely." Kate Thompson had been working with Zenthari engineers to upgrade the Liberty's systems. "Captain, they're giving us new navigation computers that will prevent any future sabotage attempts. We'll also have faster-than-light communication capabilities." Amy Carter was studying new Zenthari navigation techniques that would allow human ships to travel much farther from Earth. "Captain, with these new methods, we could reach the galactic core within our lifetime." As the Liberty prepared to depart for Earth, Jake stood on the bridge looking out at the Zenthari fleet. Ships that had once surrounded them as enemies were now escorting them as honored guests. "Set course for home, Amy," Jake ordered. "It's time to share the good news with the rest of humanity." The journey back to Earth would take several weeks. giving Jake time to prepare his report on the most important first contact in human history. His crew had accidentally stumbled into restricted space, but they were returning home as ambassadors of a new alliance. Commander Lisa Hayes joined Jake on the bridge as they departed the Helix Nebula. Captain, I look forward to seeing Earth and meeting more humans like your crew. Jake smiled as he watched the stars ahead. Commander, I think you're going to find that humans are full of surprises. The Liberty jumped to faster than light travel, carrying news that would change the relationship between humanity and the galaxy forever. What had begun as a navigation malfunction had become the foundation for a friendship that would last for generations to come.